Look at that. All right, here we go. Let's do it. So, third episode here. Got some new Ray-Ban Gen 2 glasses, which are very good. Audio from here to here is amazing. I tried these Bose little clip-on so they wouldn't be sitting in my ear. You know, they go like right here. They're junk, $300. These are the real deal. So let's do it. Let's jump into some discussions here.
All right. Well, you know, there's a lot of civil unrest because of the immigration policy and what's going on.
All the ICE stuff.
The country. Yeah, all the ICE issues.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's worthy of discussion because I think there's a lot of garbage going on.
Yeah.
And people creating unrest.
You think people are being paid or are being funded to create some of the civil unrest?
I think they may be, yes.
Yeah. I think it's like Soros. That's like that type of.
Yeah, you know, but
you got a haircut. It looks nice.
Thank you. You know, when you look at Obama administration,
yeah,
his first 4 years, combined deportations and returns were 3.2 million.
Yeah.
Trump's first 4 years, he deported 1.8 million.
Yeah. So then, number one, how was Obama able to do it without the civil unrest? That's
because nobody talked about it. He didn't talk about it. The news media didn't talk about it. It's all being ginned up to create
by Trump.
No,
because he wants to. I mean,
it
not definitely is.
Not the civil unrest.
No.
Yeah,
I'm saying
he talks about what he said he was going to do in the election. He was going to deport people that were here illegally. So he's doing it. And he's very open about it. Now, under the Obama administration, like I said, they deported 3.2 million.
Right.
Did you ever hear anything about deportations, really? Did you see any unrest?
No, not crazy like is going on, but I mean, that's just he's a you know, that's if he wants to go out there and say, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and it creates civil unrest because it makes people feel uncomfortable. Like that's just part of his he's got to eat what he dishes out. Like if he was just doing it like
you don't think there's a concerted effort by groups within the United States and the media that are creating.
Well, there may be, but what I do know is
wait. When a governor goes on and says, you know, get out there, fight the good fight, make sure you take videos, let's stop this tyranny. You don't think that creates the issue?
Well, all I'm saying is if you take president and president, I'm not saying that there aren't groups that may be funded to create civil unrest or make it, you know, harder for this this president to do what he wants to do or whatever. But I guess when you just compare apples to apples, all I'm saying is if Obama is doing it without going into the media and saying, we're going to deport this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, it probably just helps out the situation. Now, let's just say Trump wasn't touting what he's doing, right? And which is cool. He's being open about what the government's doing.
Covertly, exactly.
Yeah.
If he did it covertly like the Obama administration did.
It may be 50% less, right? Or 25% less. All I know is at some point, things a lot of times have a tipping point, right? And you don't know when that it tips over to where it becomes like this big discussion or debate constantly, or, like the lady got shot. So that definitely, but that happened after the fact, and there's all these protests already. So all I'm saying is, maybe if Trump wasn't being so outspoken about it, which, cool, I commend that. I think that's great. Government should be transparent.
Right.
Maybe if he wasn't being as transparent, and he does like to tout, is that the right word? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I would say
what he's doing to get credit
yes.
for it. And like, so now he's got to eat it, and if he wasn't showboating as much, maybe that tipping point wouldn't have happened. Right. So he could be doing it to himself. Who knows? You can't A/B split test this stuff.
Well,
right?
I would say that he does a lot of stuff to himself, but I also think that there's a concerted effort to create unrest. Now, in his first year, this second term, his deportations and returns for the first year was 527,000. So let's just say, let's just say
I get what you're saying, but the point's already been made. I don't want to drag it on.
You're saying he's creating the problem.
I'm saying it could. I think it's contributing to it. So your point is very simple. Obama, let's just say, deported 3 times as many, right? All I'm saying is there may be a better chance if he wasn't showboating as much. That's it. So
okay. So let's go ahead and move on to border policy and asylum abuse. Your feelings on that?
What specifically?
Well,
citizenship, or like,
what do you think about illegal border crossings? How should that have been handled, or how should we be dealing with it now?
Oh, I mean, I think the way that Trump's handling it is great. Like, we should have a strong border.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think one of the most important things is having a strong border. I think we should be doing that more than we should be militarizing and, the entire world, right?
Well, yeah. Now, talking about militarizing, I think especially in Minneapolis, with what's going on there, I definitely think they need to because the police are not doing anything. And it was interesting because when things started getting out of hand there, the police chief said, if you want to protest, that's fine. But that doesn't mean you can block streets. That doesn't mean you can throw things at federal, state, or local officers. Well, guess what? All of that's happening, but it looks like they've been told to stand down. So what do you think about that? Is that
who's been told to stand down?
The local police.
Have been told to stand down by who?
Say again?
By like their police chief or whatever?
Well, no, I think that the police chief has been given orders from above, not
the governor or whatever, right?
Say again?
Like the governor or something.
Probably from the mayor and the governor. Now, I don't know this, but my point is he got up and said, look, you can protest, you have to do it legally. That means you can't block streets. That means you can't throw things at police or ICE or any officer.
Yeah, I got what you're saying. So the thing I want to talk about is, do you think that ICE has the right to go in and regulate the way that they are? Let's just talk about that.
To regulate?
Yeah, to do what they're doing.
Of course they do. They're charged with following through on the federal immigration laws. So they are charged with going in and arresting people that are here illegally. So yeah, they definitely should be doing what they're doing. What I'm saying is, since the local police do not help, it makes everything that much more difficult. And that's because of the state's position, and also because of the city's position. If they allowed the local police to be there and say, no, you need to get out of the road, as opposed to ICE officers having to do that, things would be a lot smoother. So the local government and the state government is creating a very unsafe situation.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I'll tell you what, I would not be opposed to the president sending in troops to control the streets.
right. So, I mean, it's a very slippery slope. First of all, I do think that when it comes to immigration, that ICE has the ability to go into cities to, detain people that are here illegally. So I think constitutionally that's sound, and because that's part of protecting our borders. Um, I think like what happened with in DC, I think, a lot of times Trump or the president, they're misusing their powers, right? And it's a
Not
very
in,
scary
hold
thing.
on, not in DC. DC is a different situation because that's under federal
Yeah,
control
federal
because it's
jurisdiction.
not a state. So they did not exceed their authority there.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, I think that that federal agents should be able to assist if states want them there, right?
For what?
Now,
For immigration issues?
for like anything, I think when it comes to immigration, when it comes to people here illegally, I think that they have the right to go in to detain people that are here illegally if they know where they are, because
They being federal agents. In other words,
correct. Yeah.
ICE.
They've
Okay.
been charged with that. And as long as they're not asking for help from the state authorities, like, they can't use the state authorities to do their work for them or put them in
So,
danger.
so let me
Yeah.
ask you this.
Yeah.
Is it not appropriate if the local government arrests somebody for committing a crime and they're holding that person? You don't think it makes sense for them, and they know that they're illegally here in the country? You don't think it makes sense for them to notify ICE and say, hey, we've detained this person for this criminal act,
I mean,
and they are an illegal
so
alien.
like,
You can come get them.
it would be easy to say yes, but so like my point, or I guess where my head is at, is if they arrest somebody that's there illegally, they're charging them with a city, county, state crime, whatever. I think that there is something to be, well, no, I just agree with separation of state powers, right? So like now, if the state wants to say, hey, we arrested this guy, by the way, he's an illegal immigrant, like we're going to prosecute them and you can come prosecute them. I guess states should not be forced to have to report anything to the federal government is my position. If the state wants to do that, that's cool. And if the federal government knows something, or maybe they're doing, you know, they have somebody on their radar that ends up getting arrested, and they say, hey, you guys just arrested this guy, we're about to deport him, do you, whatever, after you're done prosecuting them, we'd like to take him into custody because he shouldn't be here or whatever. That's
Okay.
cool, but it shouldn't be forced on the states to have to report something to the federal government. That's for sure.
So you feel that there's no cause where the state should be compelled to follow federal statutes and work with federal law enforcement. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, because I'm big in states' rights, and
That's
and
not
the reason,
taking away rights.
so it is. So this is a good philosophical discussion here. So the reason why is because let's say there is a corrupt federal government, right? Let's just say, because many federal governments have been corrupt in the past. It's the state's rights to protect their citizens and not have to report something to the federal. Because what could happen is, let's just say, okay, and this is the reason why these laws are so important. Let's just say that there's somebody that lives in Florida that has uncovered, let's just say Edward Snowden lives here, right? And he's uncovered that the federal government, the NSA, whatever, CIA, whatever, pick whatever agency or the president, whatever, is doing something nefarious, right? And and the federal agency knows that he's on to them, or they're on to the federal agency, and they're doing whatever they can to try to capture this guy, to squash him, right? That's the reason why the separation of state and federal is so important, is because of that. Okay. So that's why a state should never be compelled to do something like that to the federal government. And essentially report one of their citizens to the federal government for that protection. And I think it's very important.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If you have someone that has broken the law,
yeah,
and you impede law enforcement from being able to apprehend that person, you don't think you're culpable because you're impeding the federal agency?
You're convoluting. You're convoluting.
No, I'm not convoluting.
Well, I'm going to tell you how you're convoluting. Are you talking about an individual, private citizen holding somebody that has broken the law?
I'm talking private or a public figure.
Well, it's two different things. I'll break it down for you. So a private, if somebody has broken the law, right, and the state has charged them or has issued a subpoena for them, whatever, then the state has the right to go get them, and no private citizen has the right to be like, no, you can't like come arrest this person that you have a subpoena for.
Well, you're saying a private citizen is allowed
if you're in my house and you killed somebody, okay, I'll make it really easy. I can't say, no, you can't come arrest my dad for killing
okay. I thought you were saying the opposite. I was going to say, wow, that's pretty far out.
Okay, I'll just start giving examples to clarify things. Okay. Now, that's completely different than somebody that the state has, and the state is supposed to give information to the federal government, because it's the federal government could have a warrant or whatever for this individual. Cool. They can go to the state and they can go arrest this person, just like the FBI can come arrest whoever they want, right? Like,
not if they're not aware that they're in jail.
Okay. So it's not the state's job, or the state should not send information. Just the same thing happens in different agencies in the government. Like,
hold on.
They all have their different departments. The CIA is different than the FBI, which is different than the NSA, and they all run their own cases completely separate for the most part.
So basically you're saying the states do not have to follow federal law. That's what you're saying. You're saying states are exempt from federal laws. That's what you're saying.
No, you just listen really quick. Just try to listen to what I'm saying.
No, explain to me why they don't have to follow.
I'm going to first say what I do agree with. If the federal government goes to the state and says, hey, you guys got Tommy Tomasino and you're holding him. By the way, this person broke this federal law, and after you're done prosecuting them, we want to go ahead and prosecute them, and we'd like to be able to come get them. Or, hey, listen, you guys got this Tommy Tomasino guy for selling drugs in the state of Florida, but they're in a much bigger thing that has to do with international drug trade. And you know what? We would like for you to allow us to come get him and prosecute him on the federal side. And they can do whatever they want between state and federal, right? That's okay. The difference that I am talking about is if Tommy Tomasino has not been, there's been no warrant or anything issued by a federal government, and Tommy Tomasino is in the state of Florida's whatever prison or jail, they should not be reporting information about this citizen to the federal government. That's crazy talk. Do you know how much
your perspective, I think, is totally off base, and that's fine. We can disagree.
Do you, first of all,
we can disagree.
The philosophical reason is one thing, which is the states need to be separate from the federal government because many times there's been dictator, authoritarian federal governments, and there are citizens that are in specific states or in territories that are trying to essentially out those bad actors in a federal government, and the federal government has the most power, and they should feel protected in their states and be able to, expose corruption. Number one. So that's the philosophical reason. That's the reason why it is the way it is. And I wholeheartedly agree with it, and you can disagree with it.
Well, I think you're totally at the wrong end of the spectrum, because the reality is, I believe the state has a duty to follow federal law. And part of that is if they have somebody that's broken a federal offense, that they should be able to let the federal government know and say, hey, we have this person that we arrested for a misdemeanor, but we know that he is not here legally, and federal law says he needs to be deported. And you're saying they have no right to do that, and the federal government has no right to expect states to support federal law.
So what you're saying, in theory, sounds great, and it makes a lot of sense. And the only difference between you and I is that my biggest fear and my biggest reason is protection of a corrupt federal government squashing small people to not expose corruption on the federal level. Okay. So
what about if there's a state government that is crooked?
Well, you're just going off on a tangent. So let me just finish my point, and then we can go to the next tangent. So in history, large centralized governments have been corrupt. They always end up being corrupt. Okay. Like you're seeing right now, there's a ton of corruption with all of this money, Somalia, like they're running these rackets. Okay.
Yeah.
So these people
That's
that are
not the government, though.
Huh?
That's not the people, not the government. Yes.
These are people in the federal government that have control of federal funds that are allowing this to happen. You don't know how deep it runs. Okay. So the difference between my perspective and the way that I think is that I could really care less about Tommy Tomasino and his kilo of cocaine as opposed to $200 billion being siphoned from the federal government. That's my
fine. Yeah. Okay. But that has nothing to do with states.
You're missing what I'm saying.
No, you're missing the point. You're in La La Land.
No, let's just say take Tommy Tomasino, and now he doesn't have drugs, but he knows about this scam that's going on in the federal government. And let's just say the vice president had something to do with this, right? So let's just say that now he's arrested in Florida for something, and
he's broken the law. And he has broken the law.
A Florida law.
No, he's broken federal law. Let's say he broke a federal law.
Okay. So listen, I understand that. I've already addressed this. If he has broken a federal law, the federal government has the right to come and get somebody.
They don't know he's there. They know he's broken the law. He broke the law. They're looking for him. Okay. Tommy Tomasino just imported 200,000 bales.
Yeah, I got what you're saying.
The federal government is looking for him. He gets arrested in Florida. Okay. Florida's not going to tell the federal government.
I won't even debate the philosophical debate. Okay. I'll debate the semantic thing. Okay.
No, let's forget semantics. Let's move on
Well,
because
well,
we're on different edge. Look, we've made our points. You believe the states don't need to tell them. You don't need to validate it somehow.
Okay. The semantics would be that there would be so many people that would be reported to the federal government if they're detained for a state crime that it would overrun the federal government with too much information. Okay.
But
So that's
I'm not talking about people that broke a state statute. I'm talking about people that broke a federal law.
okay. There's somebody that broke
let's stop because we're on opposite ends.
Well, no, that's a good point. The person that broke the federal law, you're still putting the impetus on a state agency to use their resources. The federal government has enough resources that if they want to arrest somebody, they'll arrest them. You don't
No, you're getting off the point. What we were talking about is somebody that broke a federal law and a local government has arrested them. Your position is, yeah, they broke a federal law. They didn't break, but we're not telling the federal government. We're going to protect this person that broke the federal law. I think you're way out of bounds there. Sorry.
Yeah, I got what you're saying. I mean, at the end of the day, the federal government, if they have a warrant for them and they broke a federal law, they know everything about them. They know that they've been arrested, and they come and they give the state.
We're talking about immigration specifically. We're not talking about anything else. So there are 10 million people that are here illegally.
Yeah.
The federal government does not have warrants or anything else on these 10 million people because they just came in helter-skelter and they spread throughout the country. My point is, I believe that state and local governments have a duty, a fiduciary duty, to report to the federal government, hey, this person has broken a federal law. They are in our jail. You're more than welcome to come pick them up.
So I'll say this. It should be the state's rights to pass a law that says if somebody's arrested and they are an illegal citizen, that we're going to report it to the federal government. If they want to do that, that's cool. All I'm saying is I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree with getting illegal immigrants out of here and the way to do it. What I'm stating, my philosophical debate is plain and simple. Once you tiptoe on the federal government forcing states to abide by what they prescribe, stop, hold on a second. You lose states' rights. That's my philosophical point. That is it.
Anthony, you should not have to force a local or state government to comply with federal statutes, period. So let's get off this because we're in two different worlds here.
You don't understand the difference between states' rights and federal jurisdiction.
I understand the difference, but federal law trumps state law.
Dad?
Federal law trumps state law.
What's the Constitution?
State law trumps local law.
No.
That's how it is, the hierarchy.
Okay. So the way that it works is that
in your mind,
no, this is the way that the country was founded for a very good reason.
Okay.
So it's not my mind. Okay. You have the Constitution that keeps a federal government in check from creating laws that violate the rights of the individual, number one, and of the states. So what has happened? The Constitution was written to actually restrain the federal government. And they said, if what's not in the Constitution, we leave it up to the states to make the decision. Yes. They did that on purpose.
And immigration and citizenship is not one of those laws.
Okay.
So you're just defeating your argument. No, I mean, immigration is a federal issue, period. It's not a state issue. The state can't say, oh, no, we're not going to abide by that. They can't do it. So we disagree. Let's go now to birthright citizenship.
Okay. Birthright citizenship was made essentially for, slaves, and not for
Right.
somebody to just pop in, have a baby, pop out. So
So you don't agree with what's happening with birthright
no,
citizenship. We 100% agree on this,
okay.
Anthony.
I mean, that's
Ding,
because
ding.
I'm just following what, and I'm not a follower, but I just like logical things that make sense. And I hate a very powerful federal government, but there's certain things that were prescribed at the beginning that make sense. And they were in the Constitution that way for
Right,
this reason. So
right.
cool.
Yes, no, I agree. And yet, I guarantee you, Congress does not have the spine to do the right thing and say, no, you don't just come here and have a baby and all of a sudden they're American citizens. So, okay, good. We agree on that.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. So when we look at immigration, and especially, I guess my family are immigrants. Everybody
Essentially 99%, 90%.
Right, everybody comes from immigrants,
Yeah.
right? I'm not opposed to immigration. I
love
support
immigration. Yeah.
Say again?
I love immigration.
Yeah. And however, it needs to be looked at and actually decide how we bring people into the country. Are we bringing them in because they have skills that are needed, that they're going to add to the country?
Nah, that's
You
jacked.
think anybody could just come
Here's
in,
the thing.
right?
Here's the thing. You're hypocritical. You're a hypocrite.
Thank you.
And I'm going to tell you why.
Tell me why.
Because your grandparents, my great grandparents, the government wasn't like, oh, what do you do in Italy? Oh, you make pasta? We need more pasta makers in New York. So come to Ellis Island and you can get in. No, see, it's easy
Okay, hold
once
on.
you're already
Let
a
me
citizen.
Let me respond to that.
Yeah.
That was a different time. Now, listen,
principles.
let me, hold on. I let you say your piece. Let me say mine.
Oh, I hate that point. It's such a bad point. It's a different time. Principles don't change over time.
Hold on.
They don't.
Hold on.
Okay.
So what I would suggest is that, okay, so you don't care that it's a different time, but here's the main thing. Back in those days when my grandparents came over, they weren't on welfare. They didn't get food stamps. They had to have somebody that was willing to take them in and support them until they were able to support themselves.
So
now what happens is 10 million people.
I agree with what you're saying. You're convoluting two things. Okay.
Right?
You have to separate these things. So, number one, don't use that now is a different time. Okay. Because
I can use that.
What you're saying,
because there was no welfare, that people came in and sucked my tax dollars.
Okay, so hold on a second. That is what needs to be addressed, and that is the core issue. So everything that
Rand Paul is trying to get that addressed, but Congress won't do it.
Okay, but you have to. What you said before that is a crock of BS. It just is, because here's what you're saying, which I disagree with. And let me just finish because of what I said about grandparents. What you're saying is, oh, if we vet people and they're going to add value, first of all, who's the one that selects that they're going to add value? And who's the one that gets to be the gatekeeper on, oh, you're a doctor? Oh, you're like, that's just social engineering. Hold on a second. And that's horrible to say. Now, that's picking people that you think are great and who gets to pick them to come into our country, right? Now, if you actually follow the Constitution, you get rid of all the welfare, because the biggest issue is simply this. You have immigrants coming in that are getting welfare, and then you have the government creating stimulus because they can't afford all the government programs. If you got rid of those programs, then it's as simple as this. You have borders. People should be able to come in because we're the freest nation that don't tax our citizens, and you're here for to build your life and your family's life without being a what is it called? A tick or whatever on somebody else, right?
So hold on. You're covering a lot here. So you're saying basically just use a lottery. Set the number of people. Whoa.
It's a simple thing.
Everybody wants to come to the United States.
It's a simple thing.
Okay, so how do you determine who comes in?
The only issue, there are two issues for immigration that if they were solved, you could essentially have open borders. Almost. Okay. It could be a very easy border to come across like it used to be 30, 40, 50, 80 years ago. Okay. It's simple. Number one, you get rid of welfare programs and all the government programs. So people
for everybody or just immigrants?
For everybody, because then there's all this
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, but that's a whole nother topic. Okay. So let's just say a drastic reduction on federal programs. Okay. Because then you don't have people paying for other people. And I just don't think people should pay forcefully for other people, right? I think they should donate. And when people have freedom, they make more money. And when they're not forced to pay for they always give more. So hold on. That's the first point. You get rid of people paying for other people, because then they're not sour for paying for people that are just immigrated and they're here. Even if they immigrated here legally, Dad, let's just say they immigrated here legally. People still don't want to be forced to pay for somebody that just got here. Okay. Right. So even if they're here legally. Okay. The second thing is you have to be a nation of laws, because what ends up happening is if you are not a nation of laws and the Constitution, which has been trampled on, isn't the supreme document that protects the individuals and the states from the federal government, what ends up happening is you have the majority, and we're a republic for a reason, but you have a majority that comes in. And of course, the majority is going to vote that, hey, government, let's take from the minority and give to the majority, because the majority can always outvote the minority. And even though forcefully taking from the minority to give to the majority, the transfer of wealth, it is still immoral. It is by force, right? Now, this doesn't mean that I'm opposed to people providing things for other people. I think an opportunity is the best thing that anybody can ever provide for somebody, right? So if you had those two things, reduce government programs, and you had a nation of laws where the majority could not vote against the minority to impede on what they have produced, right? And their rights, which is we're going to go ahead and tax the top 5% at 70% to give to the majority. If you could protect those things, you're good. But the issue is that Congress gets voted in by the majority, right? And so that's the reason why the Constitution is so important. And like the way that we were founded is so important, because it protects the minority.
Yeah, but here's the problem. They get voted in by the majority, but they make laws to help the minority.
Right, exactly.
Now, let's talk a little bit about what you said. Get rid of all.
Hold on.
So
hold on. That brings me back to why I think states' rights are so important. So while the whole previous discussion that we had may sound very small and you don't agree with what I'm saying, the point that I'm making now stems back to the argument that the philosophical argument, it holds that true, right? So while you can agree or disagree with all these little tangents, at the end of the day, the states' rights is the best. It gives the most freedom.
Okay, so do you say that states' laws trump federal law? No, just answer that yes or no. It's a simple yes or no.
When there are disagreements, it goes to the Supreme Court. The Supreme
That
Court.
wasn't my question. My question was.
I'm telling you the way that it's when there is a disagreement.
I understand the Supreme Court's.
So then explain it to me.
That they rule on things that have to do with the Constitution, whether it's constitutionally okay. My question to you is, does the federal law trump state law?
Or does state law trump federal law?
However you want to say it. Which one has the greater authority?
I don't take offense to this.
I know what you're. Wait. You're going to say, well, it depends on the Constitution. It's because the Constitution says the federal government has these. If we don't cover it in the Constitution, then it's the states. I understand that.
So what?
All I'm saying is,
you're asking me a silly question. You're asking me this. There are federal laws, okay? There are state laws. You're asking me if this. Okay, so we'll take this. The state of Colorado says it's legal to grow marijuana and sell marijuana. And the federal law says it's not okay. Yes, the state should have that freedom. Okay? Now, what ends up happening is if they want to go to court and fight over it, which the federal government probably didn't want to press that shit because it's going to strip them of their power. Right?
Okay. So all right, fine. Let's get back to the questions that I asked you that you so beautifully avoided addressing.
Okay. I didn't know I did, but let's go.
Oh, you did. So how do you determine how many people are allowed to immigrate into the United States on an annual basis?
Okay.
And you said, well, you get rid of welfare. Well, that's not going to do it. Sorry, because there are people in places in the world that even if there was no welfare here, they'd still be better off here. So my question to you is, how do you determine who comes into the United States? Do you set number limits?
I'll answer.
Because
what you want to do.
Hold on. Go ahead.
What you're trying to do is social engineering. Okay.
I love social engineering.
I'll tell you what doesn't make sense.
No, answer my question.
I will, but what you want me to do is answer a very complex question very simply, and I can't do that. So if you want to have an actual discussion, an intellectual discussion about it, let's do that. But I'm not going to just say yes, no.
Okay. So how are you going to determine who comes in and how many can come in? Go ahead.
So once again, you want me to put on my king hat, or
what about welfare? There's no welfare.
I get it. You want me to put on my economics hat, to being the best economist.
I just want you to put on your realistic hat.
Okay, I'm going to explain to you what philosophically I believe. Okay, I don't think that the government should put hard numbers on things. And before you go crazy and say, well, you're just going to allow 50 million people into the United States, right? What I'm saying is this. If you have a nation of laws, and you'd have to fix those things first, okay? So now, if you were to say...
What are those things?
What I just went over. Nation of laws, government welfare programs, just redistribution of wealth, to government programs, right? Somebody having by force having to give to somebody else. So
okay, go ahead.
if you were to
Now,
say,
yeah.
how would I fix it now? The way that the shitty system is set up, which is horrible, it's an extremely hard thing to do because you have those two things fighting against you. So the true solution, which I like to talk about, right? Because yeah, we can just constantly be creating shitty social engineering experiments.
Okay,
Oh, it's
go ahead. Come on. Okay, go ahead.
I'm talking about the true solution. Like if you want to get the true solution is you have to fix those two pillars. You have to cut government funding and you have to protect the laws, right? So the Constitution, state law, federal law has to be sound, and you have to protect the states and the individuals with the Constitution. Okay. Once those things and a majority can't just come and say, oh, we're going to vote for this law to get these programs back, right? Because that's just bullshit. Okay.
Come on.
So
Okay.
if you were to do those things,
those two things, yes.
Now, how would I fix immigration? It becomes really simple. It becomes really simple. It is a supply demand thing based on opportunity, what businesses need, what people need. The government is almost out of it. You're essentially just screening people for being bad actors that you don't want to come into your
hold on,
nation.
because you just said basically, even though you don't agree with it, you said it depends on supply and demand, and I agree with that. Except we agree and we don't agree the same process, because here's what I think. I think that yes, if there's a need for bricklayers, that the country has no bricklayers, then guess what? We should allow bricklayers to come in because we have the demand and we have.
Who do you want to make that decision?
Who do I want to make that decision?
You want Congress to make that decision? Do you think
it's simple.
Who makes the decision?
Simple. People that have businesses can make a report, send it in, saying, "Hey, you know what? We need these," and then the government can take those numbers and say, "These are the jobs that we need filled, that we can't get filled."
I appreciate how much.
But you're not solving any problems, Ant.
Oh, I am.
No, you're
not.
Just
not listening to it.
You just said we're going to have immigration based on supply and demand. Okay, so how do you manage that?
Let me just go ahead.
By luck.
Let me just go ahead and say this. Was it an issue 70 years ago?
Was what an issue 70 years ago?
Immigration. Oh, think about that.
How do you mean, was it an issue? You mean too many people?
Dad, what I say supply demand, you don't need the federal government to tell you, listen, hear me out. I could be completely wrong.
Yes, you are.
The point that you were stating was back 70 years ago, okay, when it was much easier to immigrate to this country, okay? It was because there weren't government programs,
right?
And people would get to this country for a better opportunity. They would get in touch with their relatives and be like, "Hey, listen, I'm working at this factory and like they need more people. If you can get here, my boss said we'll hire the whole family." Okay? That is a supply demand thing that is not controlled by the factory company going to the government, giving them, "Hey, we need 16 people."
So then what you're saying is anybody that wants to immigrate, two things have to happen. One, there has to be a job waiting for them.
Oh my God.
Two.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
That's what you were just saying was happening 80 years ago, 100 years ago.
What I'm saying is supply and demand. You don't have to, you're putting these hard stops on things. Supply demand is a free floating thing. Okay. So, Dad, just please, think about 70 years ago. Why is it different? The only reason why it's different is because of the social programs of people being forced to pay for others. Yes.
Anthony, that's not it. First of all, there were people.
Why did it work 70 years ago? Tell me why it worked 70 years ago.
100 years ago?
70, 100, what? It doesn't matter.
Well, one of the things was half of the world didn't even know about the United States 100 years ago.
Okay.
The second thing is where there were a billion people in China, a billion people in India. They didn't have any idea what the American dream was.
Let's get into a deep discussion on, let's just say, now everybody knows about the U.S., okay? And let's just say,
have to cut this because we're getting pretty long-winded here. I don't want to bore anybody.
No, I don't care about boring people. I care about getting into extremely detailed debates, not surface level shit.
It's not a debate because you're not going to convince me. I'm not going to convince you.
That's okay. That's okay. But maybe the more we discuss. So the point that you made, right, is that that 100 years ago, people didn't know about the U.S. as much.
That's part of it.
We were the land of opportunity. Okay. But regardless, there was.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Let me just finish what I'm saying.
Do you not think that the reason why the majority of the people that came here were Europeans was because how the United States was founded, where the roots were?
I understand what you're saying. Can I just explain how supply and demand works?
No, don't explain it to me because I know how supply and demand works. Just tell me your position. Okay. You don't need to explain it to me. I understand it, but you can go ahead.
No, but I'm talking about on a world stage.
I know how supply and demand works.
Okay, so this is what happens. 100 years ago, we were the land of opportunity at that point.
To whom? To whom?
Just please just let me explain, okay? There were more people immigrating to the United States. Okay, let's just say there were 10 million people in the United States, just to make numbers easy. Okay, the amount of people, regardless if the whole country knew, there were more people immigrating to the United States per capita 100 years ago by far, okay, than any other place in the world, and more than now in the United States. Why?
Hold on. You know those numbers are accurate.
You can look it up.
You're just assuming it.
This was essentially.
And it doesn't matter. You know what? That doesn't even matter to me because you're missing my point.
Let me finish my point.
Go ahead.
So when I talk about supply demand of people migrating, what ends up happening is the reason why people migrated to the US or any other country is because they want a better life. They want an opportunity. Now, the way that it's set up now, people want to migrate to the US. Why? Because they get a free ride. That takes us back to the first point, which we have to get rid of that. Now, back to the philosophical debate and the supply and demand. What ends up happening is when there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, that means people want to migrate somewhere because they say, hey, if we go there, we can do this, this, and this. And there's these jobs and this industry is exploding. And the businesses here, we don't have enough people. Please come here, right? And when that supply demand, when there's so much demand, people come in. Now, your point is, and I'll get to it, but these are the deep discussions that have to be had. When people know about the United States, you're saying if you essentially just have open borders, which I'm not for that, but for the most part, I want there to be.
Oh, no, you are.
I just said for the most part.
You don't have any control.
I want to make.
Supply and demand will do it. No control.
What I'm saying is keeping out bad actors. If you know somebody's a murderer, okay? But yes.
Yeah, that's minimal. Right.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So supply and demand should work itself out, which is the entire world knows about the US. Now, your thought is we're the land of opportunity. essentially we're going to have 100 million people that migrate to the US. And my response would be very simple. It could create an oversupply because that happens from time to time, just like with the stock market or anything else. People get really excited and too many people migrate to the US, and now there's not enough jobs for people. And so they migrate back out to somewhere else because a bunch of people came.
No, that's not what's going to happen. They're going to start stealing because they don't have a job.
Okay. So
that's what's going to happen.
That's why you have the rule of law and police force. But yeah, you could say that could end up happening. But so when people migrate, that's what ends up happening is they find jobs. If there's too many people, they migrate elsewhere. The issue is, I'm telling you what happens when you have these huge barriers that are extremely hard to get from one country to the next to migrate. What happens is people are like, shit, we just got to America and like the opportunity is not good, but if we leave, we may not be able to get back in. So it doesn't allow people to freely travel, right? And find opportunity.
And you realize the havoc that the open borders in Europe have created. But I want to get back to our discussion.
That's because they don't have
our discussion.
That goes back to law.
I want to get back to our discussion.
You just throw something in there, but you don't get to the basis of it.
The only control you think there should be that is created unnaturally and is not a supply-demand thing is for people that are bad actors. That's 100%. That's the only thing that should keep people out.
100%.
Now, my position is this. Why did it work 100 years ago? Where did 90% of Americans come from 100, 150 years ago, 200 years, 250 years ago? Where did they come from?
They could come from Zimbabwe. I could care less.
Anthony, 250 years ago.
I don't know. Europe?
You think most people came from Europe?
Africa?
Do you think most people came from Europe?
What? The point that you're making, just get it out. I don't really care where they're coming from. You're getting into some surface level argument.
What I was saying before was the reason why it worked before. The majority of immigrants were Europeans.
Hey, that's what I said.
So they have family here now. They immigrated. They tell their family that's still in Europe, hey, come here, there's work. 3/4 of the world had nothing to do with the United States. They didn't have relatives here. There was nobody here for them to go to. Yeah. Now, you are saying that, supply and demand is going to control how many people come? No, not going to work. Because if you're living in a terrible environment, even if there is no welfare here, because where you live, there's no welfare.
Dad,
there's no welfare where you're coming from. It's a terrible environment. There's sickness all around.
Yeah.
You're still better off in America. So guess what? I'm coming to America.
Okay. So
and
what do you have against that? What do you have against that? What do you have against that? Because your ancestors or somebody that was somebody that was fleeing from the Irish famine or whatever, like they did it for the same reason. So why? Just because you're related to them, it makes it okay that they didn't have a good opportunity, but some dude in Zimbabwe.
Because you had a support system here. Now, if you don't have welfare,
listen. You're just concocting fake stories. The people that first immigrated over here you're telling me that everybody that immigrated here had a support system? You're just making shit up.
I've been here a lot longer than you, so I probably know a little bit more than you.
People came here and they got a job because there were jobs.
Yes. And the issue is now the amount of people that want to come here, regardless of whether there's a free ride or not, they're still going to be better off than they were in their country. My position is this, and then we're going to end because I don't want to keep beating this dead freaking horse.
First of all, you're saying that they're going to be better than that off in their country. That is not the case, but it could be. So
they're going to be better off in our country. I didn't say in their country.
And you think everybody from China is going to migrate here?
Hell no, because things are pretty good in China.
Exactly.
That's not the issue. The issue is the 2 billion people that live in abject poverty.
Let me ask you this. So what you're saying, your biggest concern is this. We make an open border, and this would happen. I guarantee you this would happen shortly. People migrate here that don't have a good opportunity. And now they can start robbing and stealing because there's an influx of people and there's not enough jobs for an opportunity. And I think the number one thing for a safe society is having opportunity and people being able to make their own money and live. So you have a huge influx of people, right? Now, I get that. It makes sense. That would happen. But what I'm saying is this. Most people are attracted to a free ride in the U.S.
Anthony, you're beating a dead horse. I don't want to talk about that. That we both agree. There is no debate on that. That's not the debate. Let me just say.
That's not the point I was going to make.
Let me just make my final point because I don't want to talk about this anymore because it's a dead horse to me. So my position on immigration is that right now within the federal government, they track what type of jobs are open and are not being filled.
Let's get out of here. That's just so bad. You just want the government to solve all your problems. You're not a liberal. First of all, you say you're a libertarian. You're so far away from it. First of all, you want the government to have essentially like quotas that they're keeping.
Yes.
Out of here. That's just crazy talk.
I do. I do. I want the government.
You put so much faith in a federal government.
I want the government to say, this is what we need to support our country.
Do you know
and the growth within our country? I don't want open borders.
Here's the thing.
I don't want supply and demand on that.
You want a slow, lethargic, inefficient government to dictate what quotas should be of people coming in. I'll tell you what's a better way to do it. You just have companies. You don't know what industry is going to pop off. AI just popped off in the US, and now we need a different skill set.
Yes.
Hold on.
So we shouldn't bring them in, right?
No. What you want to happen is now, let's just say there's a huge swing in supply demand of the type of people you need. Now you have to go to the quotas of the US government and say, hey, listen, we don't need this many people. We need more of these people. Just get them out of the way.
No, because right now there's a means where where companies can get visas for people that they need. So that's already in place. That's my point. There are processes in place that help determine what skilled labor is needed. And what I am saying is, as a country, we are going to be better off if we fulfill the needs of our labor force by knowing what we need and allowing people in that have those skills, as opposed to allowing somebody in that we don't need those skills.
So the philosophical difference is you want the government to work with private sectors to organize and make it a perfectly nice system that they have quotas that they're trying to fulfill for people to come into our country. That's
nothing is nice and perfect, Anthony.
That system is what you agree with. You want the federal government to solve a problem. Okay. My philosophical difference. No, I don't
want them to solve a problem. I want them to do, like you said, work with businesses.
Okay. That happens all day, every day. And it's horrible. Okay. So the difference is you are looking to the federal government for a solution. My philosophical difference is I think when the federal government, a big, lethargic, inefficient, federal government steps in the way, it throws off markets. Okay. And I'm for a free market deciding where supply and demand for different people, different opportunities, and government holding a balance sheet or a quota sheet. Just people come in, if they find an opportunity, they find an opportunity. It's just social engineering. It never works. It's hard enough to make it work in the private sector alone when different departments have to report up to somewhere else. No, just let your departments hire who they need and give them, their bonus and let them go. That's it.
Yeah. Well, it would be nice in a world that worked perfectly, but it doesn't, and that's why we have laws, and that's why we have policies, and that's why we have procedures, because things don't necessarily fall the way they should.
The easiest way for a society to function is a rule of laws that protect private property and individuals, okay, individual rights and private property, and the states have the freedom to create laws while protecting free markets and capitalism. So there's really free trade.
You don't believe that, because here's a scenario. I am a worker that does X job, and I'm an American citizen. And now Anthony says, anybody come in they want. Well, guess what? 1 million people that have the skills that I have come in, and they're willing to work for half of what I'm getting paid. What do you think's going to happen to me? Are you protecting me then?
Why don't you talk this one out? Because this is a good little side tangent. What's going to happen to you? Because this is a whole nother topic.
Okay, so we'll deal with that at another date.
Okay, well, go ahead and
that could be here's the next one will be economic and social impacts of immigration. That can be our next discussion. How's that?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's as simple as this. The cost of products go down when there's people that do things for cheaper, and then it reduces the cost for everybody. So
said part of it is protecting the people. I'm an American citizen.
Oh, my dear Lord. What I am saying is completely different than the point you're making. What I'm saying is it's the government's job to protect individual rights and private property rights. Not, hey, Mike Murgio, you're a bricklayer making $47 an hour. And no, Miguel, you're not allowed to come in and say, hey, I'll do it for $40 an hour, doing it better than Mike Murgio. That's not, the government shouldn't protect your job. That is crazy talk to me.
No, but it creates havoc in the environment. If you have too many,
then you don't like competition. Then you're scared of competition. It's as simple as that. I'm not afraid of it. Most people are. Most people say, hey, listen, I don't want people coming in this country because I don't want them to take our jobs. They took our, I don't give a shit about that, because I want the best people coming to America that are the hardest workers that produce the most value for our country. That's all I care about. And if you're a slacker and you want the government to protect your job, get the hell out of here.
Hard worker. And you're going to bring in a guy that's going to work.
You're just scared. You're scared of competition. You're scared of competition.
Scared of competition.
That's what it is.
No, it's not.
That's what you're saying.
No, well, I see where you're coming from.
That's what it is. That's what everybody says the same thing.
The reality is that flooding the market is not necessarily the best thing. And I definitely believe, as I said, that there needs to be some type of control other than just stopping the bad people from coming in. I don't think we need a 2 million people a year.
What happens? This is what free market economics never floods a market. It flows.
Anthony, you're
just
not taking
listen to what I'm saying.
You're not taking into account some of the people that are coming here that are not going to improve anything.
What would happen? I'm telling you what would happen if we go back on the 2 points of laws are upheld and no social programs, and we essentially open up our borders. What would happen is you would have a flood of people, okay? Now, if those people knew that they could easily migrate out and come back in, what would happen is they would come, shit would be, listen, things would be a little hectic, but they would turn out being better. Okay.
Look
Now,
at Europe. Take a look at what's going on in Europe. I'll end with that.
you're not comparing apples to apples. So
Yeah, it's open borders. Exactly what you're talking about. Somebody goes to France.
they're not up.
They don't have a job. Oh, I'm going to go to Spain.
Listen, first of all, I don't care who wants to move into this country, so long as they are so long as I'm not paying for them and they're not a bad person.
Well, let's hope. Look, here would be a wonderful thing if right now there's a law that they're trying to get passed where anyone here illegally, not a citizen, will get no government support. That would be a great first step.
That's a first step. Rand Paul did it. Rand Paul's the shit. You know it. So him, Thomas Massey. Yeah, these are all guys that make sense. Like, these are the guys that I like. So yeah, it's the first step to doing what we need to do.
So that would be a great way to see how that impacts the amount of people that want to come here. So with that said, the next maybe what we'll talk about is
we don't know what's going to happen. Trump's in office, and we need to do some some current events as well, which this started off as that, but we don't know what's going to happen in the next week. So what topic were you going to say though?
I was going to say economic and social impacts of immigration, because that's kind of where we are at this point.
Yeah, I could go on that forever.
You need to come up with what you want to talk about.
No. You're retired. I'm not.
Yeah, so I'm retired. I don't pay attention to any of this stuff.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't impact me. I'll be dead before the next 20 million people come into the United States. So
all right, we'll figure it out.
All right. Love you too. Bye.
Bye.